After talking about narcissism, Paul says that in the last days people will be boastful and proud, scoffing at God, disobedient to their parents, and ungrateful. They will consider nothing sacred. I'm going to summarize the sentiment simply as disrespect. Disrespect to God first and to parents second. Are we seeing an increase of such things? Let's take a look. As I said about making this video, I had intended to compile an array of examples where people were scoffing at God and saying things about their creator that previous generations would just never have said. The first examples that came to mind were Curb Your Enthusiasm, Family Guy, South Park, and then an array of things said by stand-up comedians, whether that be as part of their live shows or on social media or on late-night talk shows. But as I began to go through these sacrilegious taunts, I found that I just don't have the stomach for it. I don't want to repost them here or to amplify these statements in any way. And the truth is, I don't think it's necessary because I think we all know the ways already in which Jesus is openly mocked these days. And I think we all know that these are things that previous generations would just never have said. This is a generation that does indeed scoff at God, and we see that all around us. So now we have to consider disobedience to parents. Is that rising too? Well, yes, it is. In the previous video, we talked about some of the mechanisms that are currently giving rise to a generation of more self-entitled narcissism. So I mentioned how kids are often now fatherless and are no longer being disciplined or being given strong boundaries in the home, how kids are being mollycoddled and pandered to and told that they're special in a bid to confer self-esteem. Well, this has created a power shift whereby children now increasingly feel that they're the ones in control of the dynamic and they can call the shots. Specialists are calling this the rise of little emperor syndrome. And there was a video a few years back that really just highlights this whole situation.
But I have to yell at you guys.
Okay, Linda, listen, Linda. Listen.
Okay, what?
Like everything they do at this house, you can't trust everything at Grandma's house.
Okay.
Okay, then what?
Then you're not listening to me.
Then you're not listening to me.
I asked you not to do something.
Linda, but listen to me. Look at, if you do something, if you get that bird off, you're gonna break it.
Okay, but I'm letting you know
But
that you cannot.
Lick it.
You're not listening to me.
Linda,
Listen to me now.
Listen
to me now.
Listen to me.
No, you're not listening. I said no cupcakes. And you try to get cupcakes and you try to ask Grandma.
Linda,
Didn't you?
Linda, lick it.
He's your little pop-ups, but he doesn't listen.
But Linda, honey, lick at this.
I'm done arguing with you.
I'm not arguing with you.
You need to listen to the things that I say because I'm the mom and I'm the adult.
Linda, lick it. Listen to me.
I'm done arguing with you.
Linda, I'm done arguing with you.
This kind of disrespect, the back chat, the interrupting and talking over a parent, even referring to her by her first name, would have been unthinkable to previous generations. And although it could be seen as an isolated incident, the response that it got on social media suggests otherwise. People weren't horrified by this lack of respect, but instead comment sections were flooded with support for the kid. Commenters laughed and praised him for his intellect and said how cute this was. And he was even rewarded for arguing with his mum by being invited onto daytime TV and being given a mountain of cupcakes. This reduction of respect for authority is not only causing the narcissism problems that we discussed in the previous video, but the power shift and the rise of little emperors in the home is contributing to things like obesity and teen alcoholism. Parents feel like they can't say no to their kids anymore. Michelle Elliott from Kidscape says, "Children no longer have boundaries. It's bad for children and it's bad for parents. Some parents, due to lack of time, pressures at work and so forth, are trying to buy their children's love, which is toxic. They feel guilty for not being around as often, so when their children ask for things, they simply say yes to compensate." Some experts are reporting that this power shift is now so damaging that it's leading to parent battering. They call this the last taboo of parenting, but when these entitled children grow up to become teenagers, their rebellion isn't quite so cute anymore because they have the strength to physically fight their parents to get their own way. Dr. Rachel Condry at Oxford University's Centre of Criminology calls parent battering a significant and growing problem in our culture. The charity Family Lives says that between 7 to 18% of two-parent families and 29% of single-parent families in the USA now suffer from violent children. And this stat again incidentally highlights the importance of fathers and stability in the home. Either way, it's true to say that disobedience to parents is indeed on the rise. Parents are actually encouraging it though, laughing about it, calling it cute, rewarding it, and discipline has largely gone out the window. That is storing up problems for culture further down the road. And then finally, let's consider how Paul said people would consider nothing sacred. We've already looked at how people are now comfortable with scoffing at God, and that's certainly one way that we can measure this. But there is another way, and that's simply by noting the increasing prevalence of blasphemy in our culture. After all, there's little more sacred than God's own name. Now, blasphemy is unbelievably prevalent, to the extent that we've almost become numb to it now. It's already an old example, but on average, each season of the NBC show Friends contained 157.5 instances of blasphemy, either the phrase OMG or simply God's name being used to express shock or disgust. This means that if you watch the full 10 seasons of Friends just once, you'll have heard the cast blaspheming in this manner 1,575 times. That breaks down to around 6 to 7 times per episode, and given that each episode is 22 to 23 minutes long without the adverts, that's astonishingly a blasphemy once every 3 to 4 minutes. And that's just one TV show. But again, you may hardly have noticed it, because blasphemy has become an absolutely default expression of surprise or dismay in our culture. But when we stop and think about it, isn't it shocking to realise just how often people now take God's name in vain? It's no exaggeration to say that it's virtually impossible to go through a full day without hearing it now. Of course, people also specifically use Jesus Christ's name in a disrespectful way too. And what's interesting is that the same people who do this would never take Buddha's name in vain, or Muhammad's, or Allah's, or Vishnu's, or Kali's. The only God whose name is used as a dirty word, as a curse, as an expression of disgust, is the God of the Christian Bible. Why is that? Why is the atheist's main target always Jesus of Nazareth and never Buddha or Confucius or Muhammad or anyone else? Well, perhaps for the same reason that the aspiring athlete's target is always the true champion and never the also-rans. The Bible said that in the last days people will be boastful and proud, scoffing at God, disobedient to their parents and ungrateful. They will consider nothing sacred. The Bible said all this would happen, and it has.